More like Premier League football than anyone else.
This is 5 Live.
Good evening to you. 10 o'clock and the Stephen Nolan Show live from Manchester tonight. Loads to talk about. A huge Category 5 hurricane is sweeping across the Caribbean. It hits Jamaica tomorrow with winds of 150 miles an hour. We'll have the latest warnings for holidaymakers travelling there. And if you're flying from Heathrow, you may want to get involved in our phone-in tonight. The climate protesters are warning of a day of direct action against the airport tomorrow. There have been internet threats of civil disobedience. 2,000 more protesters are arriving, clogging surrounding roads. But the organisers have said today they are too busy for peace talks offered by a group of pilots. The protesters, of course, want to stop the airport expanding, saying greenhouse gas emissions have reached dangerous levels. A new runway is planned for next year. Now, what's your view? Do you sympathise with the Heathrow protesters? Are you convinced that there is a link between planes and global warming? Maybe you're a concerned traveller. Have you been affected by the protests, or are you just totally fed up with the threats from these eco-warriors? We'll hear from them tonight, and we'll hear from you. Here's the number, 0500 909 693. The lines are open right now. Also coming up, a 12-year-old stand-up comedian. Thank you very much indeed, John. OK, we have lots to pack in tonight. The number you need, 0500 909 693. This airport protest is the subject of our phone-in this evening. Are they saving the planet for you and I, or are they a pain in the backside? We'll get your views in just a second. First, this huge hurricane. Mark, thank you. Good evening to you. I want to get straight into our phone-in tonight, if you don't mind. Let's talk about Heathrow now. And the eco-activists are camping out there. The police have been out in force today at the Camp for Climate Change protests. Up to 2,000 eco-activists have been gathering for a day of direct action tomorrow. Now, are they wasting everyone's time, or are they doing something very important that you support? 0500 909 693. The protest at Heathrow is over what the activists say is the damage flying does to the environment, but they've turned down the chance to debate the issue with the British Airline Pilots Association, or BALPA. Now, BALPA is behind the Heathrow expansion, and they say the planes are not the worst polluters. Air travel isn't the worst source of CO2 emissions, and that most flights are green. Do you think the climate change protesters are saving the earth for you? Are they a bunch of anarchists with unproven arguments, wasting police time, disrupting your travel plans? 0500 909 693. The text tonight, 85058. The email, nolan@bbc.co.uk. Well, let's speak straight away to Alan Gill. He's a spokesman for the Camp for Climate Change protest. Alan, good evening.
Good evening.
What does this mean, a day of direct action? What is a direct action, Alan?
Well, it's going to be direct action. We're going to be going out in the morning with people from the villages that will be put under the third runway, and we're marking out the route of the third runway there, and then moving from there in the afternoon to Lacey to BAA's corporate headquarters, which is adjacent to Heathrow. And
doing what when you're there?
Well, stopping anyone going in or out of the building.
It's legal or illegal?
Well, that's going to... It depends how that goes off. It may well be illegal. It may involve the destruction of the highway. It could be... But any protest in this country is arguably illegal under the Terrorism Act or Protection from Harassment Act.
But you just don't care, Alan, right?
No, I think unlawful action is absolutely justified. I think it's an absolute crisis. There is no action coming from government, quite the opposite. And so, yeah, it's absolutely come to this.
You've had an invite. Your group has had an invite from from BALPA, the British Airline Pilots Association, to sit down and talk to them and debate the issues intelligently. Why are you not doing that?
Because we only got that this afternoon. I'm happy to do it. I'll see someone from BALPA. I'll see them on Channel 4 News on Monday night if they want. Absolutely. Happy to do it.
Jim McCausland's with us this evening, the General Secretary of BALPA. Jim, good evening to you.
Good evening.
What do you make of this, Jim?
Well, I understand Alan's point about making a protest, but I think he's focusing on the wrong issue, frankly, and I think the danger of Alan's campaign at Heathrow is that it's going to promote aviation as the worst possible polluter, when in fact it's not. And I think it's going to make the public think that all we need to do is stop aviation and the environmental problems of this planet are cured, and in fact that's not the case at all. There's much worse polluters than aviation, and it's perhaps those areas that Alan should be focusing on.
Alan?
Well, I mean, it's not, no, we never say it's the worst, but what it is the fastest growing part Also, I mean, there's a lot of things that we do that we should be changing to sort of reduce our carbon emissions. And there's other ways we can, heat our homes, keep the lights on, do our food. But the one industry that has no alternative technology to make it sort of carbon reduced is aviation. And it is absolutely colossal. You've got the government saying it wants, a 60% cut in emissions by 2050. Yeah, if they get the aviation expansion they want, aviation would count for more than our total carbon budget before you or me even flick a light switch.
Well, it just seems to me, Alan Gill, that when you look at some of the statistics from DEFRA, they say that the UK carbon emissions by source, the majority of them are from business, from industry, from agriculture, from the public sector. That accounts for some 42%. Aviation, the least, 7%.
Yeah, there's the thing that's missing there is the thing called radiative forcing, which when you emit at altitude makes it a lot worse. Now, the exact amount that you multiply it by is a matter for scientific debate. The fact of radiative forcing is a fact. It's uncontroversial. The UK government says you double the emissions. So the UK government says it's around 13% now. That's a conservative thing. Plus, of course, they only count departing flights from the UK, not flights taken by UK citizens. So we're actually talking about around 20% of our climate impact is from aviation, which...
Even if you double it, it's still less than residential. Why are you not protesting outside everyone's homes?
Oh, I mean, we should be doing... Last year we were outside Drax Power Station, which is, the largest single point source of carbon emissions in the UK, because we seriously have to change the way we produce electricity, and certainly we've got to get out of coal. Absolutely. There's half a dozen industries that really have to sort of be turned around if we're going to avoid the danger of runaway climate change. But aviation, as the fastest growing source and as the one for which there's no alternative technology, really has to be turned around the quickest.
Surely what you and your group are doing is disrupting passengers. You're not disrupting the airline industry bosses. They'll be sitting in their offices. You're disrupting ordinary people. You're making life hell for ordinary travellers, and you're doing it right in the middle of summer.
We're not actually going to be disrupting passengers tomorrow. That's not what the mass action is doing. We're very clear that we think that it's the corporate push behind this that's the real problem. A lot of people are sort of choosing to fly less, and that's really good. A lot of people, so that more of that should be done, but nobody's still pointing the finger at BAA, who are pushing for a huge expansion of airports, which once you've built that capacity, it's going to be used, and so that would lock us into huge carbon emission increases at the very time we need to be cutting them down.
What would those carbon increases be, Jim McCausland?
Well, can I just pick up a point there that Alan's used a figure of 20% about aviation's contribution. I've never heard that figure used anywhere at all. Likewise, with your introduction, you talked about us campaigning because we believe that aircraft are green. We don't believe that either. And I think that's why we're looking to have a rational debate around this, to get the facts around the story so that we can have some reasonable discussion about where individual citizens can make the biggest contribution to reducing the impact upon all of our activities and on the environment. And when this discussion, as it goes on, Stephen, you just hear the shrillness coming into it, and that's what we are very much about staying away from and having a realistic debate. Our information, which comes from the IPCC, is that aviation's contribution globally is between 2 and 3%, and that by the year 2050 it may increase to 6%. Those are figures that are published. They are challenging figures, and we should do our utmost to try and reduce them. But let's put it in its context.
Okay.
That is not what is happening with shipping. That is not what happens with train travel over long distances. It's not what happens with cars, and it's not what happens with domestic impact of domestic activity on the environment. And that's the area we should be talking about, so that individual citizens know about the choices that they are making. And the trouble with the camp at present and the way in which this discussion is going is that the public are going to be confused.
OK, Jim, I've got to interrupt you there. We will come back to calls in just a second or two. 0500 909 693 is the number to call tonight. The text 85058, the email nolan@bbc.co.uk. Plenty of your calls coming in. We're going to interrupt for a second or two to go to our BBC correspondent, Alex Bushell, who's at the scene of the Penhallow Hotel in Newquay. Alex, what's happening?
Well, the latest tonight is that the demolition process has paused overnight. The remnants of the Penhallow Hotel were being made safe by bulldozers, effectively crushing and bringing down the loose rubble that was still hanging around. It will resume again first thing in the morning, and that is important because once they have